Welcome, everybody. Delighted to have you with us. I'm going to be just here for a few moments this morning and handing over to Felicity. So Felicity is going to be leading the session today. Felicity, your screen has gone a bit black and white. There we go, you're back. Lovely. But delighted to have everybody here for our last session of the year, and delighted to hand over to Felicity and Tracy and Faith from Dafen School, who are going to be taking you through the last English language entrepreneurial Café for this term, if you like, before we come back in September. So over to you, Felicity. Thanks everybody for joining. Looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Ellen. Hi. Well, hello to everybody on the call today. We're thrilled to be here, very much looking forward to sharing our story, our whole school pioneer journey with you. A school's full immersion into an entrepreneurial learning journey. I know I'm Felicity, I've been with you in previous cafes, and I contribute to the steering group. So I'm a familiar face, so I'm more excited to actually share the screen with Tracy Singleton and Faith Muldoon from Dafen Primary School today. So what we're going to talk about then is we're going to share some of the exciting things that we've learnt along this journey, and actually hopefully then at the end of it invite some questions from you if you are actually interested in following that approach yourself. So I'm not going to take up too much of your space because I really am excited to give the floor to the ladies. And yeah, and that's just a sort of a sneak preview. So it's the sort of the beginning of the presentation is to sort of show you how we got to the slide in front of you, which was last week when we had the exciting visit from the Deputy Minister of Climate Change and the Shadow Secretary of Wales, who joined us along with some key educational kind of key people who came along and were very impressed with the staff and the children's endeavours. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Dafen School. Dafen School, by the way, isn't a particularly large school. It's about approximately 153 children. It's got 11 teaching staff, which includes teaching assistants. It's headed up by Yolan Greville. And what else can I tell you about it? It's English, Welsh bilingual, so it's predominantly taught in English, but the children and staff have bilingual skills, which is fantastic. So that sort of WRC pulls through as well. I want to also emphasise that the school embraced the opportunity to make use of Entrecomp to take on the magnificent challenge that is the new curriculum for Wales, which 2022, which is due to be implemented, and it's really fantastic that the school have been able to use Entrecomp to embrace that challenge and actually fast track the way that they are actually implementing the new mandated curriculum for their school. So I'm going to hand you over now to is it Faith that's up first?
Yes. Hello, and as Felicity said, we've got a new curriculum coming into play here in Wales. On the left-hand side of your screen here, you can see 4 core purposes. Now, this was one of the early documents published by the Welsh Government about the new curriculum. And the point of these 4 core purposes is that they form the ethos of the entire education system to promote individual and national well-being, as well-being is very much at the heart of the whole curriculum. And as you can see, the goal here is to promote or to create critical and creative thinkers. We want our children to be able to think creatively and critically and think for themselves and see a problem and take action and endeavor to leave the world better than they found it. So if you see, we've got the Entrecomp flower here as well. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you've got what I would call the Entrecomp's core purposes, if you like, the action, resources, ideas, and opportunities. And if you see from the color coding between on the different statements, the conceptual language here marries up almost perfectly in order to support the new curriculum. So when we first started to learn about the entrepreneur.eu training and the framework, it felt like it was a perfect fit for us as educators to sort of target and unlock things like creativity, innovation, critical thinking, problem solving, personal effectiveness, planning, organizing, the potential of our learners as it's envisioned in the new curriculum. So we began our journey learning about entrecompedu. So I'll pass you to Tracy, the next slide.
Okay, so we've got here a visit we had from Felicity back in February, pre-COVID, and from the activities here, we were introduced to the entrecomp flower and the 15 competencies, and we threw ourselves into those activities and we familiarised ourselves then with the full suite of the entrepreneurial competencies, and we idea stormed different values and activities that we could perhaps embed in our classroom from this. And also a really important task that we did that we found really valuable was to take a smiley face and a sad face and place ourselves on that flower as to where we felt we were most confident in delivering or achieving those skills, and where we felt a little uncertain or a little perhaps unsure how we might address that. I know for me personally, it's one of my perceived weaknesses was that I don't like the fear of risk, change, ambiguity. So straight away, my sad face went onto that competency, whereas I'm more confident in planning, management. I like things to go the way I expect them to go. So my happy face went straight there. And it was quite interesting to see how the majority of the staff, you might be able to see from the top image, we sort of centered around similar competencies, with our happy faces and sad faces. So already that gave us the opportunity then to see where we need to develop as a school and what we need to take through the school to develop skills within ourselves as educators. So from that, we all were on board and we started our journey. And again, a whole school approach to give a powerful impact on shifting the entire school in entrepreneurial learning as a guiding principle. So from there, we started our journey. So I pass back there now to Faith.
So after that initial meeting, or those couple of initial meetings to wrap our heads around the framework, a sort of perfect storm happened. COVID happened. All schools in the UK were shut. We were told, take your computers, go home. You've got to figure out how to do what you do through a computer. And I mean, talk about concepts of ambiguity and uncertainty. This was kind of it in a nutshell. So we had I've lost my place now. We didn't know how it was going to work. But home learning did convince, we did wrap our head around it. And then we then began our CPD, our entrecomp training with module 1. And sort of that's how it started to happen. And Tracy, I think you'd like to speak about opportunities.
Yeah. So what we found then was that actually having that period of school closure, we were able to progress through the models. And for myself personally, I believe that did set me up a little more to be more accepting of that risk and ambiguity I previously spoke about, because I was faced with change, and quite a big change to my normal working life. And the competencies then and the skills that we learned through the 10 modules and the feedback we had from the trainers, the LoopMe forum, the comments and responses and ideas and links that we received, they were really valuable in helping and supporting us in just, as Faith has said, wrapping our heads around those competencies and how they could actually be related to our everyday practice. And also we had those opportunities because we were at home, so we could all work in a different way and we could access things at our own pace, our own speed and our own time. So it was a really, it was a perfect storm. It was very, very difficult, but we made the most of that time in order to develop our skills ourselves. So if we move on then please to the next slide.
I think you got skills first, and then I'll go on to challenges.
Okay, so during that time, I think, as I've spoken about previously, we gained confidence with the entrepreneurial language. We became more familiar with each of the competencies as educators and what that might mean for our pupils when we return to school, and also what could we achieve during the period of school closure. For myself, again, accepted and addressed the risk, uncertainty and ambiguity concept. And a huge factor in it was that it made the language of the new curriculum feel far less daunting, because previously it had been this document that we'd read through the Donaldson report, we'd looked at successful futures, and it felt still like a theory. But now we were able to see how this could be put into practice and how we as educators could adapt our skills in order to approach that curriculum with our pupils. And also it made us think more creatively and adjust ourselves and adapt ourselves. It inspired new thinking, new methods, new strategies. And I think as educators, the whole school, the fact that the whole school took that on board and we all made contributions, it set us in good stead for the new curriculum. But of course, there were challenges.
Oh, I do agree with you, Tracy. But the challenges, I mean, one in the very beginning was this mindset and ICT skills. I mean, even just us as educators working on a completely different platform, doing CPD through the modules, us as educators then trying to use different platforms to educate our children for home learners. Everybody's ICT skills had to up level, educators and learners alike. And that was easier for some and more difficult for others, but it was challenging. Things like phased returns, when we came back in September, having class bubbles. So it was a situation where we had gained all this theory, and we're itching to put it into practice, but we're very much restricted by the COVID risk assessments and the COVID restrictions that we still have to apply by, and even still do today. So we found that to be challenging. And things like assemblies. We haven't had assemblies since before COVID. So we can't have two classrooms working together on the same project the way that we would envision it after we'd taken a lot of the theory and ideas from the EL modules. So, but while restrictions are still in place, I just think we've got to be a little bit more creative. I think Tracy will agree with me there.
Yes, we have had a few opportunities since we've started Entrecomp. We've had, as Faith said, we've got to be more creative, find ways around it. We've been using Teams a lot. We've been having activities like we had last Wednesday, which we'll discuss further. Links to further CPD opportunities. We've taken on board the Cymraeg Futures, Light Bringers project. I'll speak a little more about those later. And as I said earlier, it's opened our minds to the new curriculum more, and it's allowed us to see how that can work in our setting and what we need to do in order to fulfill those needs. And we currently have Innovation Day projects, which we'll mention a little more later, which it's also allowed us to have opportunities to enhance those too in an entrepreneurial way with entrepreneurial competencies. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to speak through a few slides about the ways in which our classes have been setting about these challenges and tasks and things that we've been doing. So if we start with the nursery, Faith, that's you next.
Yeah. Right, I'm in the nursery class, so I've got 24 3 to 4 year olds. And first I'd like to say a little bit about Incy Wincy Spider. Incy Wincy Spider is a bit of a mantra down here with us. It's a bit of an invocation. As Rita Pearson says, if you say it long enough, it starts to become a part of you. This little spider is really curious. He works hard, he takes risks. But disasters happen sometimes, and sometimes Mother Nature wipes you out and you lay on the ground, you've had hurt, you've had a fright, you have yourself a big cry, and that's perfectly okay. But you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you try again. And that's what concepts like resilience and perseverance, this is what it looks like down at the bottom of the school, because the children will tell you, why is Incy Wincy my favorite one? Because he never gives up. He always tries and tries again. And it's very much embedded in what we do down here. The other thing you can see on the screen here is Marshmallow the dragon. Marshmallow is about 5.5 feet tall. He was part of a recent innovation project that we've done in the nursery. I didn't build him. 24 3 and 4 year olds built him. I just facilitated the process. I provided all the junk, the materials, the tools. So in 10 days, he was built from recycled materials, paper mache, painted, decorated. They gave him a heart. They gave him a reason for being, a name, a job, a diet, and special powers. If you can see in the center picture, there's a big A3 pupil voice scrapbook, a reflective scrapbook that the children contributed to. And the amount of language that came out of this process was just phenomenal. It's about 40 plus pages long. And when you get to the end, there's no more room on the paper to write anything. But this is what the sort of foundations of collaboration look like in the beginning. These are children that are still learning to play alongside each other and learning, pardon me, to play with each other. But with a project like this, they're all in there they're all in it together at various levels of skills. We're working with different types of tools. And if you see on the bottom of the screen, I've got the entrecomp flower, and I've removed 3 petals from it. And this is to highlight the skill coverage and the competencies that were practiced as part of this 10-day project. And when you see it in terms like that, it's quite powerful to think how many skills and competencies that these 3- and 4-year-olds have worked on during that project. And it's something I think we want to look at more in the future. So Tracy?
Yep, lovely. So we've got my class here, Foundation Class 1. We've got a mixture of pupils aged 5 and 6. And we've got some examples here. So on the left, I've got our bird feeders, which the boys and girls decided to make as a result of our work on plastic pollution. So they spotted the opportunity. We had lots of milk cartons left over after our daily milks, and they didn't want to waste them anymore. Even though they were in the recycling bin, they decided we need to start a project. So the seasons were changing, the ground was getting harder, and they were aware that the birds may be out of food. So the children took it on board to create their own bird feeders, and that's what we did. It was a bit of a messy project, but they had lots of fun trying to fill the empty cartons with seed and lard and not let them fall over and fall out, but they persevered and they made them. So from this, we decided that we wanted to actually enhance our garden area within our yard. So the children decided that if we sold the bird feeders, we could raise some funds to make perhaps a little profit. And again, entrepreneurial competencies being explored across the board. So they made their own posters. We advertised on our social media platforms, on our school notice boards, and we raised £18, which the children were thrilled with. So the birds were happy, they had bird feeders, and our garden area was then enhanced because we bought more seeds and more flowers. So the children thoroughly enjoyed that project. And then on the right, I've got our curiosity cube, and this was born from the entrecomp training we did. It was something Mrs. Little, my TA, and I were really excited to start in September, returning to school. So the whole idea of it is that we fill the cube with something different. The children can't touch, they've got to look. And their words are, it's a mystery what's inside, we've got to look hard and spot some clues. So they use it to perhaps inspire a new topic. What's it going to be about? What are we learning this week? And it gives us several opportunities: the vision, the creativity, thinking skills, imagination, problem solving, and it certainly generates discussion and reflection. So that's something that we use weekly and perhaps update weekly, fortnightly in our class. So we've had some really, really exciting things in there. We've had the shells, as you can see on the page, and one of the most exciting, the children thought, was the naughty elf at Christmas time. So they quite enjoyed that. So that's something really successful that's working in our class. And just a few examples there for you. So I'll move on now to Foundation Class 2, who are a mix of 6- and 7-year-olds. And this is an example of one of their projects. They were looking at sustainable goals, and they were recycling paper, and they wanted to think of a different way to actually do that. So from that, they decided to create their own paper to see if that would work. Now, there's an example on the screen of the process they went through, and I think the staff and the pupils would agree this was a lesson in perseverance and resilience, because perhaps it didn't work initially the first time the way they wanted it to, but after speaking to the staff and the children in the class, they're going to try again and have another go at it and work on what perhaps they could improve next time. So it's a really good skill to have. You can't necessarily get everything right the first time, and that's something we need to build in our children. So again, another successful task for the children in Foundation Class 2. So if we move on to Year 3 now, we've got examples here of our Global Entrepreneurial Week back in October 2020, where some children in Year 3 are in the pictures. They decided to recycle old clean leggings and use them. So real life contexts, they wanted to make face masks. And they had to work together as a team. They had to help each other measure their faces to make sure the face masks fitted. They had to cut them out and mark them out. And again, ethical, sustainable thinking, so less clothing waste. And I think the children really enjoyed that, and it helped them to feel as though that there was a purpose to it. They were working towards a cause. It was to keep them safe and something that they could do at that time in school that reflected what was actually going on in the world around them too. And then on the right, we've got some lovely images of some clay tiles. Now, this is part of our Lightbringers project, which I'll speak a little more about later. And it was one of our examples of capturing the moment. So being out in nature, collecting natural objects and printing them in tiles. Now, the children spotted that the pieces of work were so beautiful, it was a shame just to have them as hangings. So they decided to collect some lavender and actually make air fresheners for your car. And I have seen them up close, and they're really effective. So the children then moved on to thinking about the money matters. Oh, sorry. There we are, money matters, and they costed how much air fresheners would be, perhaps in shops like Morrison's, Tesco's, Halfords, and they set a price for their air fresheners. So the purpose now moving forward is to sell those and to raise profits for their class. So perhaps to purchase something for the end of term. So again, learning through experience, and it's a really enjoyable task for all. So we've got next year 4-5. Where we've got some really good examples here of engaging with local stakeholders, even though we were in a period of school closure. So on the left, we've got year 4-5 who created bunting from recycled fabric, and they created that in order to send to our local care home. And that actually opened up some lines of communication for us, because from that, the pupils in all of the classes in school participated in Grandparents' Day, where they created cards and sent little gift packages over to the care home. So just from the bunting that we sent over, we've now got that relationship, and I know from the staff and from the residents, they were extremely grateful for that contribution. And the children also, you know, it was creating value in their work. There was a motivation behind it and a sense of pride in achieving it and seeing how happy the residents were. So on the right, we've got year 4-5's allotment, and again, engaging with local stakeholders there. They had contributions from Morrison's and contributions from a local company, Stevie B's, who donated seeds and plantlings. So it's a really, really nice way to enhance our green areas and foster sustainable thinking and ethical thinking with the planting and growing, and also a lesson for the children in perseverance, resilience, motivation, because plants don't always grow the way you expect them to, and things don't always go that way, and weather, inclement weather. So I think the children, from what I've seen, and I do spot them outside quite a lot, tending to their garden, and they seem to be really enjoying that. So it's a really nice project to take through the seasons as well. So finally then, we've got year 5-6, and they collaborated together to plan their challenge and share ideas about possible uses for some old t-shirts, things that have gone a bit too small perhaps. So they decided they'd upcycle the t-shirts and create shopping bags. So supporting sustainable goals, as well as being purposeful with value creation there. No more plastic waste from throwaway shopping bags. And they developed many skills across the project: vision, planning and management, mobilising resources, creating value, and again, spotting the opportunity to make those bags. So that was a really successful project for them. On the right, we've got some beeswax wraps that the pupils made as part of their Lightbringers project. And I've seen these wraps up close, and they're really effective and they're really purposeful. They work really well. So again, they engaged with local stakeholders. They put a request into our local company, Dunelm, for perhaps fabric at a discounted price. And actually, they were so impressed with the enthusiasm and the innovation from the children. They gifted us fabric at no cost. So we had quite a lot of fabric from that, which was a great benefit for the school too. And the children really enjoyed the process. And it was just getting them out there in the local community through a way that we could safely do at the time. So there's some lovely examples there of work going on throughout the school. There are lots more, of course, but I couldn't possibly share them all. So if we move on, please. So we've got the Lightbringers project here. So this is a project that I've led as part of the LLC AOLE, and it's based on the book The Lightbringers by the author Corinne Celestine. And this came about at the beginning of the school closure. So the purpose was to offer hope, light, and positivity during quite a difficult time. And it was a whole school challenge that we took on, creative learning, which really did align closely to the 4 purposes and helped us and has helped us with the curriculum for Wales. So the idea is that we work through nature, learning from and in the outdoor environment, and there are the modules that we work through, and each class creates a piece, or we collaborate together, which we're doing in Unit 5, working on now. And it just tries to foster that sense of the the well-being and working from your environment and getting value creation from things that you are working on and creating yourself. Okay, and then from that, what we've done now is the collaborative approach there. We picked out immediately, you could see that the entrecomp competencies could come really nicely through this as well, actually. So, and it's given us so many platforms then to develop the competencies, and it's instilling the different mindsets in our pupils to creativity, valuing the ideas from the tasks they're doing, mobilizing different resources. They're using things in a different way. And also creating self-awareness too, and awareness of their environment and what's going on in the world around them. So the book and the project did become an anchor really in fostering collaboration throughout the school, even in the circumstances we were in, because everybody felt part of the same thing. It was for a whole school goal, something to achieve. Even though we couldn't physically get together and mix, we could all celebrate these units together in some way or other. And also encouraged us to come together through this joint venture and, you know, just enjoy being in school and enjoy the area we've got. And we've actually got a really successful willow snail from that too, which we're hoping to make it more of a mindfulness area. So the Lighthouse project then led on to the next slide, which is the Cambrogi Futures project. So it opened up further training here because we were offered to participate into this at no cost, which was fantastic. So it was taken up now by several members of staff. And from the outset, it was clear to us that the ethos of Cambrogi Futures just married in beautifully to the pedagogy and teaching intertwined with entrecomp and, of course, the new curriculum. So the 4 modules were completed by staff and they're interwoven with competencies, and you can just see how everything fits in together beautifully. They're not separate entities to be thought of differently. It's something we can put in together and a way we want to create that new curriculum for our learners. So, and again, it just helps us with that approach of the new curriculum, which is, you know, not so much on the horizon anymore. It's getting ever closer. Okay, so if we move on. Faith?
Thank you, Tracy. I agree with you, Tracy, about the Cambrogi Futures as well, because conceptually they marry up perfectly with entrecompedu, the new curriculum, and I really enjoyed doing those modules.
Yeah.
So if you see on this side, we've got the entrecomp flower again. Well, a bit of background. In some staff meetings, we had some just chit chat about, you know, how could we possibly use the entrecomp flower more effectively around the school. And similar to, like, we're rights respect in school. So like similar to children's rights, you have your children's rights and you have a child-friendly language version. Well, we thought, well, we do a child-friendly language version of the entrecomp flower. So we split off into key stages. So foundation phase staff met, all teaching staff and support staff. We all sat down together and thought, well, how do we change this flower into more child-friendly language? And not just to make it smaller words, but to think about, you know, the types of language that children would actually be using in the classroom on a daily basis. So for the foundation phase flower, you're looking at language that 3 to 7-year-olds can meaningfully be using themselves. So if you look, and more bespoke to our school as well. So if you see on this flower, things like incy wincy, try again, you don't give up, have a go, and things like tickle pink, green for growth, bits and bobs, those are from assessment for learning techniques that we've already got embedded in the classroom. So this language isn't new or unfamiliar to the children. It's language that they're using every day with their teacher and with their friends in the classroom. So, and similar to us, Key Stage 2 sat and did their flower. I think, Tracy, do you want to show the Key Stage 2 flower?
Yes, so as Faith said, the Key Stage 2 sat together and they looked at some of the competencies and how they could perhaps, you know, we are talking about older children here, so they're a bit more au fait with some of the language anyway, but just to make it a little more accessible to some of our younger Key Stage 2 pupils. So you can see a lot, you could pick out straight away what the entrecomp competencies are. We've got working with others, planning and organising, go for it. Just words that the children, as Faith said, would be open to using and using without thinking about it every day to show that it's within them. It is something that they are developing and working on without thinking. So that's something, as Faith mentioned earlier, we're looking at working on throughout the school, and perhaps adding to display boards or innovation tasks or projects that we're doing, just to see what competencies we're covering. I think it's really powerful to see that if you're only removing 1 or 2 petals, or even 4 or 5 petals, if you're achieving that many competencies through one project, that's a really successful venture for you. Thank you.
I think this was back to Felicity.
Felicity.
Right, okay, well, thank you for that. It's been so pleasurable to listen in to you girls, and to just sort of bring the sort of the practical day-to-day sort of experiences of Entrecomp that we talk about quite generically when we sort of share stories out there in the media. So that's really special. So this slide here is just in a way to just sort of show how we were sort of as a project celebrating the wonderful endeavours of the school together. And obviously it was in COVID context, so we couldn't meet in person, but we did take the opportunity in July to come together and award the certificates, award the Didi badge, and bring people in to talk, and some guest speakers to come in and celebrate the endeavours. So that slide there is just to show that we were obviously supporting staff and rewarding staff and celebrating staff endeavours. And technically, that would have been the point at which we would have sort of come back and sort of let the school kind of continue. But what was interesting is these ladies, they did not stop at sort of their CPD. When we came in to check in on them, or I came in to check in on them as they were coming into their sort of return to school prior to the second lockdown, it was coming up to a Global Entrepreneurship Week, and there was a suggestion there to say, well, guys, what are you doing now with your learning, with your entrepreneurial learning skills? And it was magnificent that with all that sort of chaos going on, that the school was able to sort of pull together a sustainability themed Global Entrepreneurship Week within a very short space of time. And I think that's testament to how embedded these skills are, because they didn't really have to think about it. It was natural to them. The school was already in that system, in that sort of flow of being able to sort of pull on those competencies and pull strong themes together with a whole school focus, and come away with the very busy slide you see in front of you, a whole suite of projects that were building. And this wasn't done in a piecemeal way. This is something that's actually demonstrating integral building to their curriculum development. And I think, and I'm really, really glad that you pulled attention to those other projects like Cambrogi, because what this has shown is that the Entrecomp seeds provides a core foundation for these new projects to come along and actually connect to and build. So instead of projects coming along in a disparate way, they're done, they're parked, and then things move on, there's this continual building of entrepreneurship on entrepreneurial learning that's coming through the school, strengthening, month by month, week by week, that sort of curriculum build. So it's a credit to you, and I'm sure there's going to be lots more new projects that come along that will be underpinned and supported by your entrepreneurial Entrecomp journey. So so I just really want to sort of pull it together and say, the girls have been fantastic. They've come together and they've contributed to sort of sharing their story, not just today in the cafe, but across the Entrecomp forum, active practitioners there. We've obviously engaged them in their local online ceremony as well as the global online ceremony, and there's inclusion in the yearbook. But they've also been part of a research journey as well for us, because the individual sort of CPD that came about with entrepreneur was about individual learners having the opportunity to kind of go online and develop their pedagogy and their profession. So this was quite an unusual setup that we had a whole school embrace it together. And what we found was that that's actually quite powerful. So instead of people going along and giving time to go off and do their CPD and hopefully with their passion leak back those messages back to the school, we didn't have that. We had a whole school sharing and caring and learning together, and it amplified the messages on the learning and created this kind of fast track build of learning. So it's really there, a little message there about whole school immersion versus individual CPD. So they're also featured in our blog series, their journey, snippets of their journey, and they've shared their story, as you know, through social media, and they're appearing in some forthcoming research papers that are coming up about whole school approaches as well. So there's lots of, and I know there's invitations coming through a county level in our own country as well. So that's just a snapshot of how this will continue to build, it will continue to strengthen, and it will feed through not in just practical and practice sharing, but will impregnate research in professional development in an educated context, not just in an entrepreneurial learning discipline, but quite generally as well. So next steps then.
Right. Next steps for Dafen Store. I know you've heard us mention now our innovation days. Now, we've been doing these for a while, but since completing the entrepreneurial learning training, we're beginning to look at them in a different light and in a different way. I know for me in the nursery, I don't like calling them days because they're quite often not just a day. It could be half a day, could be a day, could be a week-long project. Of the dragon, the most recent one took 10 days. I've started calling mine Gwaith Mawr projects, which is a big work. You know, we're looking at perhaps a name change and looking at how frequently we have these projects through the school. Because currently, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy, but we do one every half term, and Key Stage 2 do one a term. Is that correct?
At the moment,
okay.
Yes.
So we want to look at these because it doesn't always have to be at the end of a topic. It can, it can often be a half-day project that's in the middle of a topic. But what they are is that they are chances for holistic cross-curricular learning that gets all the children stuck into a singular project, that joined up thinking, and they're fun. They're really fun to do. So, and using the flowers as well, using the entrecomp flowers with the child that are bespoke to us in Dafen, to look at our projects and perhaps look at the number of petals that are removed, or are you covering all of it all the way around at some point over the course of the year? So I may not have, in the nursery, the financial one isn't going to be there for a lot of my projects, but can we get a fair coverage? So that is a next step, I think, that we want to discuss. Tracy?
Definitely, yes. And there's a few other things there that Faith and I've spoken about. We've got the Harmony Project, which Felicity gifted us the book back, last year, no it was, I think. And that's something we'd like to take on board as a whole school approach to well-being. There's some lovely initiatives in the book, and I think it works really well with how that the other modules are set out to make sure that we're covering different things throughout the year, throughout the school. I think it's something, especially at the moment, after the whole school closures and the restrictions, it's such a massive part, and it's such a massive part of the new curriculum too. Well-being is the heart. So I think that's something that we need to look at, and perhaps Faith and I will take forward if, all being well. And then again, incorporating the entrepreneurial competencies and skills into our new curriculum planning. How are we going to ensure, like Faith said with the flower, that's fantastic, but how are we ensuring we're planning coverage for that across our terms, across the school year also? So that's something we need to look at again with the new curriculum coming in. And then, as you've seen through the slides previously, there's some really successful engagement with stakeholders in the local community. But I think that's something really vitally moving forward with the new curriculum. So pending those rules relaxing, getting involved with our local community a little more, and perhaps inviting people in, with expert skills, people that we can learn from, that our learners can get that experience from. And then I'm going to pass to Faith now with the Playshed project.
The Playshed project is something we've been developing over the last, a few years now, and it has to do with loose parts theory and junk play, and it looks at the quality of the children's play times during their dinner hour. And we believe this will, to further develop it, will further support the new curriculum, especially around concepts of well-being, but also entrepreneurial learning competencies. Through play with loose parts materials, you see a lot of creativity, you see a lot of problem solving, and we also the Playshed project also looks at the concept of risk benefit assessment. Now, I think because of COVID, we've probably had our fill of risk assessments, but a risk benefit assessment is something quite different. So this is something that we're keen to further develop or get very creative about, because we're still, again, because of the COVID restrictions, the project's been sort of on hold a bit. So that's all for me.
Excellent. Okay, so we wound up at the beginning of the story now, really, where I said, you know, this was kind of all this kind of lovely activity which began back in January 2020 now, which was just before COVID, when we did have that wonderful opportunity to meet together on site when we did that sort of work around the flower. So here we are. We had a wonderful event where we had visitors from Nia and Lee and from the Education Council, and it was just such a joyous experience. And what was interesting is the enthusiasm that was picked up, not so much from the guests. That was you know, I was expecting that because I knew they were going to be really impressed. But I think it was the fact that the enthusiasm and the light that was coming from the staff and the learners' faces, for me, said it all. That it was kind of, they hadn't run out of steam. The momentum was continuing to build, and that definitely shone through. And I think it was the power that this isn't just about entrepreneurship or enterprise, that there's some serious themes and challenges being addressed here, and which was picked up by Nia Griffith, the Shadow Secretary of Wales. And it's the sustainability, the ethic issues, the mental well-being, the engagement with the local community, as well as the key literacy skills, not to be forgotten, strong oracy. We had students there presenting without notes, confidently using quite a new, I'd say, sophisticated language, and that was definitely a testament to the depth and to the strong foundations that have been built, theme by theme, project by project. So really, I just wanted to sort of like bring you sort of back to that sort of where we are, where we were just only a few weeks ago, which was picked up and celebrated by local business champions, councillors and education advisors, etc. So just to sort of finish off the story, really, sort of to take it back to why we're here today, as well as obviously celebrate Dafen's contribution to the project and their ongoing success, is to show that this works. CPD, using something like entrecompedu, is very powerful. It was powered, I believe, because it did have facilitated support. It wasn't just an online sort of, modules. We had people behind the scenes who were interacting with our learners using our LoopMe platform. And that really helped. And okay, perfect storm, COVID came along. And I think that, that sort of opportunity for staff to share their stories and to have some personal reflection time, which is done in their personal space, then that opportunity to think wide and see their community as this global entity, when they were then confident to go out and share their stories with people at the other side of the world, and not just only within their context, as in primary to primary, but we had primary teachers engaging with HE educators. We had people from the voluntary sector wanting to learn about what's happening about the nursery children. I've had people on there who've exchanged from, English and poetry through to AI and technology. So it is that kind of cross-cutting sort of interactive and professional exchange, which I think has nourished and inspired and supported a number of their, that sort of new mindset and that growing mindset. And it was also about celebrating, when we take a project on like this, it isn't about sort of to push them to push aside all their lovely experience and skills to date. It was about recognising that they had something and had been offering good pedagogy and confidence and good practice already. So it was that sort of building on and celebrating what they already do well and just looking for new opportunities for growth. I think that was quite powerful as well, because people don't like being told, you know, you're doing all wrong, let's start again. It was very powerful that people were able to draw on their experiences and reflections to support their ongoing journey. And as I've already mentioned, gains to be made from a whole school immersion. We didn't start off whole. We started off about 70% had put their hands up when I first raised the project opportunity. But it was the appetite of the people who didn't show their hands up first when they heard other people talking, the excitement and the engagement, and that sort of was infectious to others. So the fact it was very quickly then we became 100% complement on the project, which was fantastic. And then you've got that sort of opportunity, which the girls have already shared, is that when you work on the themes across the school, you have got that sort of, you're infecting the culture as well as the skill sets as well. So that's another gain from it. I had to stand back and put my university head on then as well, and said that this has been a very powerful project to create really strong relationships between the university and a practice community. Because you think about it, the universities have to look after the educators, we educate the educators. So, instead of that them and us, we sort of develop educators and they go off and they become practitioners. We kind of almost, this project was actually helping us get closer to our educators down on the ground. And there's a feed forward to us about, what's going on and their needs, especially in terms of, for example, the curriculum development, as well as us pushing out new ideas and research. So that tightening of the educator pipeline and network has definitely been secured in a project like that. So, and the girls are influencing our research endeavours, as I've already explained. So it's a powerful tool to bring together new curriculum, sustainability, entrepreneurial agendas, as well as strengthening the entrepreneurial culture, not just for learners as well, but the pipelines and the stakeholder groups that envelope the educational community. So that was really just a short summary there for the benefit of entrecompedu CPD. So I guess I can sort of bring a close to the sort of formal share then of our learning journey together, and open the floor up to questions. So let's see if there's anything in the chat. Anna, is any key questions that come through that I've missed from the chat? No. So do we have
Hi,
any...
Felicity. Hi, it's Julie.
Julie.
Can I ask about how you have measured impact on pupils? It's very clear that engagement has been there and their interest, and that they were leading their learning according to things that, their decisions that they've made. How have you measured kind of further impact on pupils?
I think you can see the impact that it has on the pupils in the way that they conduct themselves, the way that they participate in tasks, the work that comes out of it, is particularly higher up with if you're talking about the money matters that we've looked at, when they've been raising profits and loss, when they've been costing things, the work that's come from that and the skills that the children have developed that perhaps we wouldn't necessarily be seeing at a 7, 8, 9-year-olds level usually. That sort of impact there that we've seen within the books, things that we've seen in the language, the way the children communicate, the way they converse, the way they present things. Those are all skills that aren't necessarily hard data that's measured on paper in front of you, other than within the books. But it's the development, the change in the pupils and the learners and the way they are conducting their own learning also. I think that's really powerful. And you can see that even as, with Faith's class, with the nursery, and with my class, I've got 5 and 6-year-olds who when we had our day 2 weeks last Wednesday, we asked the children, right, come on then, boys and girls, what are we in our class? In Foundation Class 1, what are we? And the fact that they could say, well, we're a team, we're creative, we're good thinkers, we're good listeners, we're problem solvers, we're happy. That was a nice one for them to shout out, the way that the children have developed from this. I think that's one of the most powerful impacts that we've seen.
Yeah, and I can add to that in terms of is that obviously we've got this new curriculum opportunity come through, and it's not quite sort of fully set in terms of how that's going to be assessed. So rather than us wait to be told, isn't it fantastic now our educators will probably see the opportunities of how to actually mark the progress and actually influence that assessment process. So it's actually be something that will be, I would say, be value adding and fit for purpose, because we will be looking to sort of see that growth along those competencies mapped by a genuinely robust educator research informed framework like entrecomp. And that's where that we marry up then with other projects that are going on in terms of entrepreneurial assessment and how we can best measure and use assessment tools to actually do what they're meant to do, and not just label people falsely and give people false security and leave learners out who are actually growing, but they don't necessarily fit the sort of traditional tools. So I think there isn't a fixed answer to that, Julie, unfortunately, but we're definitely better positioned to lead now that and influence that process in a far more productive way than we've ever been before.
Thank you. Hazel just put in the chat, make your own ruler to measure your progress. I love that.
Definitely. So I think that was a much simpler way to say it than thank you, Hazel. She's always great for a one-liner. Thank you. Any other questions?
I was really, really impressed with the translations. You're making meaning from entrecomp, and we've done it with other languages as well. But what I was wondering was, from you now, Felicity, do you think we can revisit the entrecomp model for the university sector, having had this wonderful example?
Definitely. I think what I've learned is that, you know, I think we didn't shoehorn anything into Dafen. Dafen took the key principles and foundations and the mindset, and they've created their own shoe. And I think that's what we do need to do now with the university. And you know, it's fantastic that, you know, we've already started that journey now with the learners that are coming through. But boy, they're going to come through with such a pace now that the university sector better be fit for purpose for when they catch up. So when they, you know, for when they're ready for us. And I do think, yeah, so yes and yes, Andy. And I think there's many lessons we learned from the Dafen case study here. And it is about taking ownership and, yeah, and be more pirate. I got to throw that in. And, yeah, and steering it to be fit for purpose by the people on the ground who know what they're doing, that are closest to the learners, yes.
Yeah.
A great presentation, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? Or it doesn't even have to be a question. It could be a digestion. Otherwise, I'll pick on someone. I'll be more pirate and pick on someone.
Can we say be more pirate and be more like Incy?
Definitely, and the fact that even caught the attention of I dare I say it, I've seen a few sort of media bursts from Lee Waters, our Deputy Prime Minister, who was on site, Deputy, I promoted him, Deputy Minister for Climate Change, and I think he's definitely been a bit more pirate this week, and he's been a bit more provocative and challenging and saying, you know, this is going to happen, and if we have to break some rules and review and revise things in a more ambitious pace in a different way, then yeah, that so be it. And I think one of the powerful things about this project as well has been that it's been all about action. He took that away very strongly. He saw that we are creating resilient, innovative, creative learners that are going to be change agents in society. And that's, you know, it is about not just having the theory about it and experimenting, but we're very much focused on, you know, putting things into action. And I think that came through very powerfully in the project outputs that were displayed on site at Dafen School the other day. That throughout those journeys, yes, they were sharing reflections, yes, they were sharing and showing off their language, but they all had purpose and they all had something very pragmatic to do with that as well. So I think it's that kind of that key part of the flower, isn't it? Into action, change agency, voice, that's actually strengthening this particular entrepreneurial learning journey. I'm going to pick on Emyr. I've got a question for you, Emyr. I can see you there now.
Oh, gee, thanks.
You're from a, you work in the educational sector. What's been your sort of listening into the learner journey and having some insight to the school as a governor? What's been your take on, or your sort of feeling about the cultural shift within the school?
Well, first of all, looking at the project itself it's just been fantastic. It's moved not just members of staff, it's moved the pupils in a direction that is just, well, it's just a shift towards this new curriculum where it's really difficult for practitioners to keep up with everything, whereas this program has just been a program. It's been a journey for everyone, governors including, and sort of to see how it's sort of come through, how it's developed, how that you've got learners now in looking at the children, thinking of the creative skills, thinking of the financial, working out the finance things, everything, the whole idea of, because it's almost like getting them ready for a workplace environment without them even knowing it, because that's what it's about nowadays, is shifting that goalpost, and seeing, going across, traveling all over Wales, looking at different schools, everyone has different sort of opinions and different ideas, but this is just fab. It's just been such a great journey for me, a learning journey for me to jump on board and look at things and sort of, I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, Emyr. And I think you picked up on there, yes, that there's definitely been a shift in terms of value creation concept, isn't it? That it isn't just about like raising money, as Tracy mentioned, that is one part. You can get kids to sort of like do a cake bake sale or whatever and learn financials that way, but it has been about creating value for themselves, for their communities, for their stakeholders as well. So that's been quite a powerful sort of a shift. And what's lovely, which is kind of hot off the press, I've only shared this with a couple of other people, there's already some appetite from parents of Dafen schools. So there's a new sort of turn to this this story, and that is parents actually saying, well, this is exciting and I want to know more about this. And also I just want to say thank you as well, because obviously there's a lady here on screen who's also not Mrs. Yolan Greville, and it's her school, her leadership, and I have to say thank you, because we do need to have leaders and the management in the system to have the take a risk when they're presented with an opportunity. And obviously it went through governing board, etc., and having that backing and support. So I just want to say thank you to Yolan for entrusting us in her space at a time where she was vulnerable, like many other heads, and had lots to worry about, a lot more responsibilities than ever. So thank you to Yolan for trusting us and letting us try and have a go and be innovative and creative, and continues to let us to be like that and have that mindset in our schools. So that's thank you to you, Yolan, for that opportunity.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure to do. And as Emyr said there, when I first heard of Entrecomp, I automatically thought profit, loss, especially with being maths with my background. But the range of skills that the children have actually learned and developed, things like your well-being, vision, planning, creativity. I've also found it's brought the pupil voice in far stronger, and how it marries in so well and underpins a lot of the philosophy for the new curriculum. And as a result, then I believe that Dafen School are well on its way with the implementation of the new curriculum as a result of this Entrecomp Edu. So I'm very, very grateful to you, Felicity, for bringing it on the table for us and enabling us and supporting us through this very, very exciting journey. So thank you very much.
Not something you would hear many heads saying about the COVID period. So I think that says it all, really. That they've taken what's thrown at them, what the world has thrown at them, not only survived it, but thrived through it, and have the energy and ambition to take it on to another level as Entrecomp pioneers. You know, definitely a force to be unleashed. So thank you, Ellen, and Entrecomp, and you and Kath Penaluna, who are behind the scenes, obviously steering as well. So yes, I think that really probably sort of, unless there's any more questions, is probably as much as we're going to share with you today. I want to so thank you to Tracy Singleton and Faith Muldoon and for representing Dafen School so wonderfully. You definitely demonstrated your entrepreneurial competencies, so thank you. And I just want to remind that we have got a new style Entrecomp Cafe coming up next week. We're going Spanish. I'm not going to even attempt to sort of give you the title of the theme, but that will definitely come through. I believe we've as like by magic, Anna has shared the link if you want to register for that. But also this week, we just bounce from event to event at the moment as we come to the end of the formal end of the project end, the formal end, not the real live kicking, breathing, continuing forever end, but the end of the project in terms of its build. We're celebrating with a policy event on Thursday. And I mean, we've got people interested in this from, obviously, we've already had the 52 countries we mention a lot in our media who have been involved in it with various educated participants. So we've got educated leaders coming from all sorts of countries as diverse as Chile to Palestine, Scotland to Malaysia. And we are seeking to sort of share how this project can inform education policy. So I know we've got contributions coming in from our own Welsh Minister, Jeremy Miles, and I think there was a confirmation, I think, from North Macedonia, the Deputy Minister of Education and Science has actually got a contribution in there, and there'll be lots of other different policy names. And that whole kind of event on Thursday then is to sort of show where this project is going to go and how it's going to inform. But there's one very clear message, and that is Entrecomp Edu has a very, very powerful role to play in Wales, particularly in terms of supporting its national curriculum objectives. And we hope that serves as a role model to other countries who may face similar challenges. And we're very much open doors to continuing to share our journey and our learning as we go along. Thank you for your time.